Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Scott Alverson, and today we are going to be talking about the art of collecting miniatures. Let's call it a journey into tiny treasures. Again, my name is Scott Alverson, and I run a hobby store. And today we're going to literally talk about something that is a definite integral part of my hobby store. Collecting these little beauties, miniatures, hydras, and we got the big giants. Oof. We got the giants, right? We got pretty dragons. We got the dreaded beholder, right? They are just part of what we have. There's the excitement and the emotional appeal to collect these and paint these, even if you don't paint, even if you're just a collector, and play with them in your games. And it's just each miniature that I have a little collection, and I talk about, I come up with stories for them. The water elemental from Aurel Partha back in the day. He has a little story to go with him. He's been in a game. He's been a mini at my table. Where is this leading to? This is leading to miniatures not only being a collectible, but they're also part of, when you put them into your games and you play with them, they're part of your life. They're part of the life of the people at the table. And if it's the right miniature in the right spot, it can be fairly memorable. Okay, so we're gonna move on. There are different types of miniatures though, and that was just a brief intro. And just stick with me here, and we'll get over a whole bunch of stuff on this topic. There's different types of miniatures. There are your typical role-playing miniatures, which I showed you. Where are the role-playing miniatures? Where the Hydra, the dragons, the giants, the beholder, etc., etc. And there's also the fantasy miniatures for the people. Where you got like the little hag, right? You also have all kinds of different characters you can have. You get your wizard, etc., etc. I'm not going to show you everything because that would be just ridiculous. You also have that kind of scenery, which is like a forge, right? But that is all set for the fantasy scene. You also have one set for post-apocalyptic, so Fallout. We do have Fallout miniatures. There's ones for mini war games, Games Workshops, Warhammer. There, Star Wars Legion. And many other. War Machine, there's piles and piles of them. There's also ones that you play and collect that are little pewter ones for Civil War and older type large war games and whatnot. I don't have examples of all those right on hand. I just wanted to kind of go over, this is going to be a short video going over the briefs of it, and we're going to get into some deeper stuff if we want later with more videos. So why the miniatures? Well, it gives everybody, it gives the DM, it gives the players, everybody at the table a chance to show their diversity, their differences. Each player, of course, can have, like I said, they can have the old hag as your mini, and maybe that'll be unique to her, and the other character can have the gnome or the goblin or whatever the character type's going to be. And so that's the reason. Now, why would you collect them? Well, why wouldn't you? Also, one of the biggest reasons to collect them is, especially if you get ones that are pre-painted and pre-packaged. And I'm not saying that the ones that I painted aren't worth money, because they are. Because once this guy goes out of print, it'll be really hard to find him. And the ones you get into the boxes, the Icons of the Realms, I believe, they only print those one time for an X number of months, and then that's it. So collecting miniatures can also be a small investment. I don't take that as financial advice. That's not the whole idea. The idea is that getting into something that you love and it's fun for you, right? So that is the different types. That's just the types of miniature collections you can have. There's different ways of storing them, which we'll get down to that section. Starting your collection, what do you do? A lot of people just pick a subject and go with it. Like if you're part of a campaign, say a Starfinder campaign or a Pathfinder campaign or any type of game, there's always should almost always miniatures for that style of game. And so what you do then is you go out and you purchase a mini or borrow a mini or trade for a mini, and you just start that. You research the items you want. Also, come down with a budget because it can get out of control. You start buying these little booster boxes they have, and you get 4 minis per box, and so you get usually one large, maybe medium, or anything else, and it gets a little wild, right? And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I spent way too much money on minis. Well, so I would recommend a budget, and that way you're more likely to trade and barter, and maybe look online or look into the game store and see what minis they have to trade with for you. So that's the best way to start. I really stress that you find minis that you're absolutely interested in dealing with. Like, don't go out and get a bunch of fantasy minis if you're a sci-fi fan. Like, that just makes no sense, and vice versa. So, a good way to do this, to look up the type of minis, is lots of times places like TCG Player and eBay and all these other, there's a lot of places online, but if you look for the miniatures, or even the companies that sell them, like WizKids and stuff, you will find lists of all the miniatures they have, and do that. You can also get custom miniatures done at places like Hero Forge, I believe it's called, and there's other print-on-demand places that you can get your custom minis too. Although, it is a little more expensive to collect minis that way. So yeah. Now we're moving on to that. If you are getting into minis and we'll say you've purchased your first few minis, now we're moving on to displaying them. Well, there's many ways to display them, and it all depends on whether you want them to be seen by the public or you want them to just be safe. The safest way to do it is there's cases that you can get with foam inserts. You can pluck the foam, or there's ones that already have squares cut out of them. And they range a variety of sizes and colors and shapes, and many different companies make these. But you put your mini in there and you close the case and it's safe forever, right? Some of the ways the ways I do it, because I don't mind my minis being on display because they're used to be played with, I store them on like Lazy Susans, and I put them on the shelves, and people can play with them and touch them and do whatever they want, right? As long as they're not, being too ridiculously abusive towards them. So yeah, that's how we do it. Also, you can have like shadow boxes, you can have shelving units. Other people put them in tubs. I mean, there's a guy that literally, when he's running a fantasy campaign, he just brings in a big Rubbermaid bin full of minis, and he just digs through the ones that he wants. It's kind of wild. But I guess it's really up to you. I do have a few favorites. If you've ever seen Chessex dice containers, the little square containers, and the 28mm and 32mm minis fit in there really, anything smaller also. But those minis fit in there really, really nice, and it's a really good way to display your mini without causing too much, getting them too dirty and whatnot. Because one of the downfalls of displaying minis is undoubtedly these little suckers get dirty, and you blow them off, and you take a brush to them, and blah 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 blah. Speaking of that, while you're displaying them, if you do take them out and you are just leaving on an open shelf, a good brush to use to get rid of the dust off these minis. A lot of people are like, air cans. No, don't use air cans. Because air cans just knock them over and fling them all over the place. Big, giant foundation makeup brushes. They're these bigger, poofy brushes. And I don't have one in hand right now, but maybe I do. No, I don't. Okay. I don't have one in hand right now, but they're these big brushes, and they're big soft brushes. You can just rub right over the top of these minis. Just make sure there's no makeup on them. Don't steal them from your girlfriend. Just go to the store, buy them. Dollar stores usually have them for $1 or less for a pack of them. They're cheap brushes, but they're really good ways to keep your minis clean. Okay, so kind of moving on to something different. Now that you've collected your minis, you've displayed them. Now what? I mean, what's the point of them? Well, after that, you've got the stories to share, and you can always bring the old Grandma Hag back out and introduce her to a new campaign when you're DMing, or she can be a memory. But it's always good to have stories behind each of your minis. Also, what happens is lots of times you get a lot of minis, and for us here at the game store, we painted them. We started basically selling the minis we're painting, because what do we do with them all? I get a lot of minis I use for campaigns and I paint them up. But after I'm done with that campaign, the odds of me using the, X mini that I use for a boss is probably pretty slim. Now, lots of times I'll keep them hanging around for a while, depending on how much I like the paint job, or I'll just list them online and sell them. And then buy more minis, of course, because that's what you do. You buy more minis. There are clubs and there's groups out there that you can get into that love this stuff. I've been in a few Facebook groups. There's also other groups you can get into. Check out your local game store and talk to them about it. There are lots and lots of ways to collect minis. Minis have been collected forever. I'm not going to lie. This is something that's been going on for years. It's just starting to get to be considerably bigger because of the meeples, and then lots of board games. Indie board game developers are putting custom characters, and everything is custom made now. And with the introduction of 3D printing, whether it's resin printers with FDM printers or even the other styles, everything is getting to be more accessible, and that means you do not have to settle for what is just available, right? Like for us here, we do custom minis. We custom paint them. We can also print them. We have multiple ways of printing the minis, and it is absolutely wonderful. I don't have I do. Okay, so this is a 3D printed mini here. It's kind of hard to see because of there we go. See, he's a custom printed mini, and he's fantastic. I printed him on a resin printer, and his details are just absolutely wonderful. And if you get good at doing that, or somebody that has a resin printer or even FDM, because Grandma Hag here was printing on a FDM printer, and she didn't turn out so bad either, right? Get them printed. You can do that for Warhammer. You can't play in leagues and stuff with like 3D printed minis for those kind of things, for those bigger war games. But for your local game store and your non-tournament situations, most people don't really care as long as there's somebody to play with. So yeah, future-wise coming along, I think the custom 3D printing is going to be the most popular way of minis. I do see places like this company I was talking about earlier, WizKids. They print out usually two of these style of minis per box. There's various styles, but usually the small ones are 2 per box, and it's like $5 or $6. You get to the little bigger ones, these guys, it's going to be, I think this guy's probably, I think I recall he's $14.99. These are $8.99, that size. Actually, this was from a Paint Night box. And then you get the bigger ones, which I don't have one, but they're considerably bigger, and they're anywhere from $29 to $59. There's also a Tiamat size, which is like $400. There's also giant ships. But in the future, it's really, I think it's going to be going towards the custom minis, where you go to your local game store and say, hey, I would like this printed. The game store is probably going to be able to print your STLs right there on the spot. And maybe even, if you're lucky, the person behind the counter can paint for you. But anyway, it's really, the sky is the limit with this, collecting the minis and having fun and enjoying the situation. And don't be scared to trade off your minis for new ones. And, don't be scared to get into the painting, which we haven't even discussed, and we're not going to discuss in this video. But you get into the painting and all that. All we're really discussing is collecting. And it's just a satisfying. It does get to be overwhelming because you will at some point have a lot of minis. And like I said, then you buy and sell. And there's places online you can actually sell pre-painted store-bought minis. Like the WizKids, they have also the Icons of the Realms. And, some of those are rare. They're rare minis, and they only print X number of copies of them. And you can sell them online for money, right? And minis that were printed back in the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s. You're even mid-2000s now, I guess, if you're getting towards the 2020s. Lots of those, they're just like any other collectible. You can turn around and sell them later down the road for more money, and just to buy more and fuel more hobbies and fuel more. It is also a really great way, and I'm going to top it off with this. Collecting minis has been a really good way for me to talk to other people that maybe haven't got into board games or war games or even the tabletop RPGs. Just talk to them about it and show them, it's not just sitting around making up stuff in your head and just playing, right? Because if you can show them a physical representation of that hill giant compared to your wizard, you can see there's a considerable difference between the two sizes there. And that helps with people who don't visualize as well as others. And it just shows you, it gets people excited. Even the people who don't play these kind of games get excited. I've also seen people, and this is just, to top this off, I've also seen people take their board games that they do have, that have just regular pawns, like in Sorry, they have these, regular pawns. And they'll turn, not necessarily in Sorry, but they'll turn like their chess pieces, and they'll just custom make a chessboard with all these custom minis. And so your options are unlimited as far as the types of chessboards you want. Anyway, I've been a little long-winded on this one. I think that we'll probably talk more specifically about 3D printing minis again, which we've done videos in the past, but we want to get a little more into that. And we'll get more into the WizKids and the industrial, the mass-produced, and then we'll even go into the Hero Forge and the custom-made printed minis that you can buy online and the different websites for that. And so, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like, subscribe, follow us on YouTube. Just follow us. Do wherever. You can find us all over social media. Gus Stuff is the way. We have podcasts and we talk about stuff like this. And I'd like to thank you all for your time. And until next time, my name is Scott. You call me Guff. Signing off.